Here is a dangerous paradox that society forces you to believe. You are told that being a good team player means sharing the burdens of those around you. You are taught that empathy requires you to feel what others are feeling. But what if this exact mindset is destroying your psychological power? Think about it. A coworker spirals into a panic over a minor problem. 5 minutes later, your own heart rate is elevated. Your focus is shattered. You have just committed the ultimate act of mental surrender. You let someone else's weakness hijack your mind. This is not empathy. This is emotional infection. Today, we are tearing down the myth that you must suffer alongside the chaotic people in your life. We are going to explore a hidden truth, a framework of emotional invulnerability, understood by only a fraction of men. I'm going to show you how to stop absorbing the frantic energy of your co-workers and start building an impenetrable mental fortress. If you want to know what separates the elite mind from the reactive herd, pay very close attention. What you're about to learn will permanently change how you operate. Tell me in the comments right now, how many times this week have you let someone else ruin your mood? It is time to put an end to it. The modern workplace is no longer just a physical environment. It is an intense psychological battleground. Decades ago, men exhausted themselves through physical labor. Today, the exhaustion is entirely mental and emotional. You are surrounded by people who lack self-discipline, people who use panic as their default setting, and people who constantly broadcast their internal chaos to anyone willing to listen. The problem is that modern men have been conditioned to be accessible and reactive. You leave your mental doors wide open. When a co-worker brings their stress to your desk, you unconsciously absorb their frequency. You take on their burdens because you believe it is the right thing to do. But every single time you allow external chaos to dictate your internal state, you lose respect, you lose focus, and most importantly, you lose your personal agency. This is not about ancient philosophy or dusty books. This is about real-time, modern survival. If you cannot control your emotional perimeter, you will forever be a slave to the weakest person in the room. You must learn the mechanics of emotional detachment. You need a system to observe the storm without getting wet. Let us break down the exact steps to achieve this. The invisible contagion. Imagine walking into your workspace on a Monday morning. The air feels heavy. Someone is aggressively typing, sighing loudly, radiating pure stress. Within 10 minutes, your own chest feels tight. You have just been exposed to an invisible contagion. Emotional chaos is not just a passing feeling. It is a highly infectious psychological virus. Most men walk into their day completely unprotected, acting as emotional sponges for the anxious and the undisciplined. They absorb the frantic energy of their peers, mistaking this absorption for participation. But here is what separates a strong man from the rest of the herd. Elite men do not absorb. They observe. They understand that every time you let another person's uncontrolled emotions dictate your internal state, you are handing over the keys to your mind. You are surrendering your autonomy. To reclaim your power, you must first recognize this invisible contagion for exactly what it is. It is an uninvited attack on your peace. When the storm hits the office, the weak get swept up in the wind. The strong man becomes the mountain. He lets the wind howl, knowing it cannot move him. The myth of the empathetic team player. Society has sold you a very dangerous lie. The lie is that carrying the emotional baggage of your co-workers makes you a good person. You are told that matching their urgency shows you care. This is a trap designed to keep you emotionally exhausted. True strength does not mean lowering your frequency to match the panic of the room. True strength means maintaining your baseline so firmly that the room is forced to match you. When a coworker comes to you with a crisis of their own making, your instinct might be to jump into the trenches with them. But think about the elite strategist. A general does not win a war by panicking alongside his foot soldiers. He wins by maintaining a cold, calculated distance from the chaos. You do not owe anyone your peace of mind. Let me repeat that. You do not owe anyone your peace of mind. Empathy does not mean bleeding just because someone else is cut. What separates the formidable man from the average employee is the ability to offer a solution without offering his soul. You can be helpful, but you must remain emotionally untouchable. The architecture of an emotional fortress. You cannot survive a siege without walls. Yet most men operate with no psychological boundaries whatsoever. They leave the gates to their mind wide open, allowing any passing complaint, grievance, or panic attack to wander inside and set up camp. Building an emotional fortress is not an act of fear. It is the ultimate act of self-respect. It requires you to define exactly what you will and will not allow into your mental space. Picture a physical barrier between you and the chaotic coworker. When they speak, imagine their anxious words hitting a reinforced glass wall and sliding down to the floor. The words never actually reach you. This is conscious visualization, a tool used by top-tier performers to create instant distance. You hear the information, but you reject the emotion attached to it. The weak man believes he must process everything thrown at him. The strong man runs every interaction through a strict security checkpoint. If the interaction brings nothing but frantic, useless energy, it is denied entry. Your mind is a sanctuary. Treat it like one. The pause of power. There is a sacred space between a stimulus and your response. In that space lies your entire freedom as a man. When a coworker rushes at you with an artificial emergency, your biological instinct is to react immediately. Your adrenaline spikes. You want to match their speed. This is exactly where you lose. The elite Stoic masters the art of the pause. When chaos is presented to you, do nothing. Breathe. Wait 3 full seconds before you speak. Those 3 seconds will feel like an eternity to the person panicking, but to you, they are a reclamation of power. In those 3 seconds, you are sending a subconscious message. Your urgency does not control my timing. By slowing down your response, you instantly neutralize their frantic energy. You pull them out of their whirlwind and force them to step into your calmer reality. The average man speaks because he is anxious. The strong man speaks only when he is ready. Mastering the pause of power turns you from a reactive pawn into the director of the interaction. You dictate the pace. You set the rules of engagement. Mirror neurons and the herd mentality. Let us look at the biological reality of why you absorb chaos. Your brain is hardwired with mirror neurons. These are designed to help you empathize and bond with the tribe by mimicking the emotions of those around you. If a caveman saw his tribe member running in terror, his mirror neurons told him to run too. But you are not running from a predator. You are sitting in a modern office with a coworker who forgot to send an email. Biology is working against you. The herd mentality forces average men to unconsciously mirror the stress of their environment. But you are not here to be part of the herd. Elite men actively override their primitive biology. They become acutely aware of the moment their mirror neurons try to hijack their nervous system. When you feel your muscles tensing because someone else is stressed, recognize it as a biological glitch, not a reality. You must consciously command your body to relax. Drop your shoulders, deepen your breathing. By physically refusing to mirror their tension, you break the biological chain. You elevate yourself above the primitive responses of the masses. The difference between observation and participation. One of the most profound shifts in a man's life occurs when he learns to watch the storm without getting wet. Most people do not know how to simply observe. They feel compelled to participate. If there is drama, they engage. If there is panic, they worry. They merge their identity with the event. To stop absorbing chaos, you must cultivate the mindset of a scientist studying an experiment. When your co-worker throws a tantrum, step back into the theatre of your mind. Watch them as if you are watching a movie. Analyze their behaviour. Note how their voice shakes, how irrational their arguments become. By shifting from a participant to an observer, you sever the emotional cord. You are no longer part of the scene. You are the audience. This detachment is not cruel. It is tactical. The moment you start observing, the chaos loses its grip on you. It becomes data instead of drama. This is the hallmark of a formidable character. While everyone else is drowning in the narrative, you're standing on the shore, taking notes. Why their urgency is not your emergency. We live in a culture that worships false urgency. Everything is a crisis. Everything needs to be solved 5 minutes ago. Your chaotic co-workers thrive on this false urgency because it makes them feel important. When they bring a supposed disaster to your desk, they expect you to drop everything and validate their panic. Do not fall for the trap. A lack of planning on their part does not constitute an emergency on your part. You must ruthlessly evaluate the actual stakes of the situation. 99% of the time, the world is not ending. The strong man operates on a timeline of reality, not the timeline of someone else's anxiety. When approached with frantic demands, respond with a low, slow, and steady voice. Ask logical, methodical questions. Strip away the emotion and look only at the facts. By refusing to adopt their fabricated sense of crisis, you remain the anchor. You teach them that they cannot use you to amplify their stress. You are a wall of stone, and their urgency is nothing but water breaking against it. The anchor technique for physical grounding. Mental frameworks are useless if your nervous system is completely hijacked. When you are confronted with severe emotional chaos, your body will try to slip into a fight or flight state. You need a physical mechanism to snap yourself back to the present moment. This is called the anchor technique. It is a method used by elite operators in high-stress environments. When the chaos starts, shift your entire focus to a physical sensation. Press your feet firmly into the floor. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Grip a pen until your knuckles turn slightly white and focus entirely on that pressure. This forces your brain to process immediate physical data rather than the abstract emotional noise being thrown at you. It grounds you in reality. Your co-worker might be spiraling out of control, but you are physically rooted to the earth. This simple act of physical anchoring breaks the spell of emotional contagion. It reminds your subconscious that you are safe, you are solid, and the storm outside has no power over the fortress inside. Verbal judo and the art of deflection. You cannot always physically walk away from a chaotic co-worker. Sometimes you must engage. This is where you deploy verbal judo. The goal is to deflect their negative energy without absorbing it and without escalating the conflict. Weak men argue. They try to calm the chaotic person down, which only feeds the drama. The strong man uses minimal, neutral responses to starve the chaos of oxygen. When they complain, you say, "I understand." When they panic, you say, "Let us look at the facts." You do not offer emotional validation, and you do not offer resistance. You simply let their energy slide right past you. Imagine their words as a physical punch. Instead of blocking it and taking the impact, you step to the side and let their momentum carry them forward. By remaining entirely neutral and objective, you become a deeply unsatisfying target for their emotional offloading. They want a reaction. When you deny them that reaction, they will eventually take their chaos elsewhere. Mastering this linguistic discipline gives you absolute control over the dynamic. The cost of empathy without armor. Let us talk about the heavy price of being an unprotected sponge. Empathy is universally praised, but unchecked empathy is a fast track to emotional bankruptcy. When you constantly absorb the stress, anger, and anxiety of the people you work with, you are draining your own life force. You come home exhausted. You have no energy left for your personal goals, your physical training, or your family. You are giving the best parts of your mental energy to people who do not care about your well-being. This is an unacceptable trade-off for a man who wants to achieve greatness. Your energy is your most valuable currency. You must guard it with absolute ruthlessness. Wearing psychological armor does not mean you are cold or sociopathic. It means you are a steward of your own potential. You realize that if you burn out trying to manage everyone else's emotions, you become useless to yourself and to the people who actually matter. The strong man understands that self-preservation must always come before social accommodation. Put your armor on. Redefining leadership through silence. There is a profound misconception about leadership. People think the leader is the loudest person in the room, the one giving the most orders during a crisis. But look at the truly elite men in history. True leadership is often characterized by absolute silence in the face of panic. When a coworker is losing their mind, your silence is your ultimate weapon. It is a commanding, heavy silence that demands respect. While everyone else is babbling, trying to fill the dead air with nervous chatter, you sit back and observe. You let them exhaust their erratic energy. Your silence acts as a mirror, forcing them to look at their own irrational behavior. It communicates a powerful message. I am not threatened by this, and I will not lower myself to join this frenzy. This kind of stoic silence establishes dominance without you having to raise your voice. It separates you from the chaotic masses. People are naturally drawn to the man who cannot be shaken. By mastering silence, you become the definitive center of gravity in any room. The power of the blank stare. Expanding on silence, we must discuss the tactical application of the blank stare. When someone approaches you with toxic, chaotic energy, they are looking for a hook. They want a nod, a frown, a sigh, any micro-expression that proves they have infected you. Deny them. The blank stare is a technique of advanced emotional withdrawal. You look directly into their eyes, your face completely relaxed, devoid of any emotional feedback. You do not scowl. You do not smile. You simply observe them with the calm indifference of a statue. This creates immense psychological discomfort for the chaotic person. They are throwing emotional darts, and they are hitting a brick wall. The lack of feedback short-circuits their momentum. They will usually stumble over their words, realize they are overreacting, and quickly retreat. The blank stare proves that you have absolute sovereignty over your facial muscles and your internal state. It is a silent declaration of war against their drama, and it is a war you win without lifting a finger. This is what unshakable masculine frame looks like in action. Compartmentalization as a superpower. The human mind is not meant to process everything all at once. Elite men possess the superpower of compartmentalization. They build highly structured mental boxes for different aspects of their lives. When a coworker tries to drag you into their personal drama or professional panic, you must mentally place that event into a sealed box. It stays in the box labelled coworker's problem. It does not bleed into the box labelled my focus, and it certainly never enters the box labelled my personal life. Average men let the ink of one bad interaction stain the entire water supply of their day. They let a 10-minute argument ruin a 24-hour cycle. You must refuse this lack of discipline. Visualize shutting the lid on their chaos. Lock it away. Once the conversation is over, the event ceases to exist in your active consciousness. You immediately pivot your absolute focus back to your mission. This mental hygiene prevents emotional residue from clinging to you. It keeps your mind sharp, clean, and aggressively focused on your own trajectory. The false guilt of being unbothered. As you begin to master these Stoic principles, you will encounter an unexpected enemy. Guilt. Society, and often your chaotic peers, will try to shame you for your calmness. They will call you aloof, distant, or uncaring. They want you to feel guilty for not suffering with them. You must eradicate this false guilt completely. Feeling bad about being calm is a relic of your old weak programming. Understand that their criticism is simply a projection of their own inadequacy. They resent your emotional control because it highlights their severe lack of it. When they accuse you of not caring, simply nod and remain unmoved. You do not need to defend your peace. You do not need to apologize for your stability. The elite man embraces his detachment as a badge of honor. He knows that his emotional discipline is exactly what makes him capable, reliable, and powerful. Let them wallow in their chaos. Let them whisper about your coldness. The lion does not lose sleep over the opinions of the sheep. Enjoy the profound freedom of being utterly unbothered. Energy vampires and how to starve them. Every workplace has them. The chronic complainers, the professional victims, the people who are perpetually offended or forever in crisis. These are energy vampires, and they feed on your attention and your empathy. If you absorb their chaos, you are voluntarily offering your neck to them. To stop this, you must starve them of their food source. An energy vampire cannot survive in the presence of extreme stoic apathy. When they start their routine, become the most boring person in the world. Give one-word answers. Do not ask follow-up questions. Do not offer solutions, because they do not want solutions. They want to bathe in the drama. Keep your eyes on your work. Give them the absolute minimum level of professional courtesy and nothing more. When they realise they cannot extract an emotional reaction from you, they will move on to an easier target. Starving an energy vampire requires discipline because your ego wants to fix them or argue with them. Drop the ego, protect your energy, cut off the supply and watch them disappear. Physical space and psychological distance. Sometimes mental frameworks need the support of physical action. You cannot always sit in the blast radius of an emotional bomb and expect to stay completely clean. You must take control of your environment. If a co-worker is radiating toxic chaos, physically alter your space. Stand up and walk away to get water. Put on noise-cancelling headphones. Shift your chair so your back is to them. These micro-actions do two things. First, they create literal distance between you and the pathogen. Second, they send a very clear, non-verbal signal that you are unavailable for their nonsense. The weak man stays seated, enduring the uncomfortable environment because he is too polite to move. The strong man modifies his environment to suit his needs without asking for permission. You are the architect of your workspace. If the air becomes poisoned by someone else's anxiety, you have the absolute right to step out of it. Master the art of the strategic exit. It is not running away. It is tactically repositioning yourself to maintain your superiority. The Stoic filter in real time. At the absolute core of Stoicism is the dichotomy of control. You must filter every single piece of incoming chaos through one simple question. Is this within my direct control? When a co-worker panics about a company-wide policy change, a lost client, or a delayed shipment, apply the filter immediately. If you can fix it, take cold, calculated action. If you cannot fix it, discard it entirely. There is no grey area. The average man spends 80% of his mental energy agonizing over things he cannot change. He absorbs the fear of the unknown. The elite man operates with brutal efficiency. If it is outside his control, it does not exist to him. When your co-worker brings you an uncontrollable problem, say, "There is nothing we can do about that right now," and turn back to your work. This level of pragmatism is almost shocking to the modern mind, but it is the ultimate shield against absorption. By rigidly enforcing the Stoic filter, you ensure that your mental processing power is only ever spent on actions, never on useless emotional reactions. Transforming annoyance into amusement. This is an advanced psychological tactic used by men who have achieved supreme emotional mastery. When you are constantly bombarded by the chaos of lesser minds, it is easy to become bitter or annoyed. But annoyance is still a form of emotional absorption. It means they have successfully disturbed your peace. The ultimate counter move is to shift your perspective from annoyance to quiet amusement. View the chaotic workplace as a grand, absurd theatre. When the chronic complainer starts whining, do not get angry. Be secretly amused by how predictable human nature is. Treat them like characters in a sitcom. Oh, there goes John, panicking about the printer again, right on schedule. This internal reframing is incredibly powerful. It strips the chaos of its threatening nature and turns it into a comedy that you are simply observing. You remain completely polite on the outside, but inside you are untouched, smiling at the absurdity of the unrefined mind. You defeat their chaos by refusing to take it seriously. The ritual of disconnection. Even with the best armor, the battlefield leaves residue. If you want to remain an elite man, you must master the ritual of disconnection. You cannot carry the phantom echoes of your co-workers' chaos into your home. The end of your workday must be marked by a definitive psychological severing. Create a physical ritual. It might be shutting your laptop with intention, taking a specific route home, or sitting in your car in silence for 5 minutes before turning the key. During this ritual, visualize taking off the heavy armor you wore all day. Acknowledge that the office and its inhabitants no longer exist in your current reality. You are crossing a threshold. The weak man brings his co-worker's voice to his dinner table, complaining to his family, spreading the contagion further. The strong man buries the day's chaos at the office door. He arrives home clean, present, and fully in command of his energy. This boundary is non-negotiable. Your personal life is a sacred territory. Never let the ghosts of incompetent co-workers haunt your peace. The ultimate freedom of the unbreakable mind. What we are really talking about here is absolute freedom. When you no longer absorb the emotional chaos of your co-workers, you cease to be a puppet on their strings. You become self-generating. Your mood, your focus, and your drive are determined entirely by your own internal compass, not by the shifting winds of the office floor. This is what it means to possess an unbreakable mind. You walk into rooms of high stress, and you remain the calmest man there. You become a pillar of stone. Over time, people will notice this. They will stop bringing you their petty drama because they know it cannot penetrate your aura. They will respect you, fear you slightly, and ultimately defer to your leadership. By mastering this stoic detachment, you elevate your status from a common worker to an elite presence. You are no longer reacting to the world. The world is adjusting to you. This is the highest level of masculine power. Guard your mind, hold your frame, and let the chaos of others destroy itself. The truth is finally in front of you. Every time you absorb the emotional chaos of your co-workers, you are choosing to weaken yourself. You are choosing to let undisciplined minds dictate your reality. But starting today, that stops. You now possess the framework of the elite 1%. You understand the architecture of the emotional fortress, the power of the tactical pause, and the absolute necessity of stoic detachment. Your peace of mind is your most valuable asset, and it is time you start defending it like your life depends on it. Do not just listen to these words. Execute them. The next time someone brings their frantic energy to you, become the mountain. Observe the storm. Do not participate in it. If this masterclass has shifted your perspective and awakened the stoic power within you, hit the like button to show your commitment. Subscribe to the channel to join a brotherhood of men who refuse to be average. I want to hear from you. Which of these stoic strategies are you going to use tomorrow to shut down an energy vampire? Drop your answer in the comments below. Stay strong, stay detached, and never surrender your mind.